Well, anyway, I've got a pretty crude video set up here. It's just a pocket digital camera. So you'll have to excuse all the falderall there. Alright, well, I'll start with page 102 for this excerpt of From Spokane to Granite Falls, novel in progress. So without any further introduction, here we go. One day in early December, shortly before Sylvia and Bill were due to return from Italy, Felicia drove her Porsche to the Les Schwab tire store in Granite Falls, where she paid for a set of 4 snow tires, which she asked to be installed, plus a set of chains. The salesman gave her a few pointers on how to wrap the chains around the tires and secure them, after which he said, "You thinking of driving up over the pass into Seattle?" "Why, yes," Felicia said. "I plan to drive there this weekend to see my boyfriend." "Well, then you've sure come to the right place. Have a safe trip, Miss Goldberg." Now, where they go? As she smiled and departed, she had never been addressed like that before. Suddenly she felt more mature and experienced, and the clerk had hardly taken his eyes off her. Yet she took some pleasure in knowing that the man had found her not only attractive, but had shown her a certain courtesy and respect. Once school let out on Friday afternoon, she embarked on her trip, first having said goodbye to her parents, who were somewhat apprehensive about this adventure, as her father described it. She had been relieved, however, when neither her mother nor her father had tried to talk her out of it. Her mother rationalized Felicia's trip to Seattle as a vital progression in her relationship with John, and Mr. Goldberg eased his anxieties concerning his daughter by viewing her trip as a significant milestone in her life, which indeed it was. Felicia intended to surprise John by showing up at his dorm room. She had the building's address and John's room number from the several letters they had exchanged. She would have a little trouble finding him with her cell phone and Google Maps. About 5:30, she parked in an area for visitors in front of the dormitory and took an elevator up to the 5th floor, where she got off and soon found John's room. As she approached the door, which was shut, she heard John's and one other male voice. She knocked on the door, and a guy wearing glasses opened it, presumably John's roommate, and he smiled at her, then turned away from Felicia and said, "Caldwell, your girlfriend's here, you lucky dog." "What?" John set down a sheaf of papers covered with his handwriting and glanced at the doorway where Felicia stood with a purse strapped over her shoulder, and she looked fabulous. "Fucking A," he said, gawking in surprise at Felicia. "I don't believe it." "Get your coat, mister. We're going out for dinner." John's roommate, Ross Oglethorpe, said, "If I ever got an invitation like that from a girl, I'd, faint and keel over." "Take it easy, Oglethorpe, and don't wait up for me. Oh, and remember that product rule in calculus, to come up with the derivative of an equation?" "Well, I glanced ahead in the text, and the fucking quotient rule is a hell of a lot more complicated. I've spent over an hour trying to memorize that motherfucker. So mount up on your studying, man. You're gonna need it." And once John tossed on his jacket and they were passing out through the door, they could both hear him say, "Fuck me," in a very dismal tone. As they walked down the hall toward the elevator at a relaxed pace, Felicia turned her head toward John for a moment and remarked, "So, I gather that guy's your roommate." "Yeah, his name's Ross Oglethorpe, a quintessential geek. I don't think he's ever been on a date with a girl in his life. Maybe he's gay. No, sometimes he watches Pornhub on his laptop after he's gotten into bed." The elevator arrived and they got in. When the elevator began its quick descent, Felicia said, "Are you glad that I've come to see you?" "No question, Philly. I'm thrilled you're here." With this, she gave him a long, lingering kiss, which was eclipsed only when the door opened onto the ground floor. 66. The dinner at the Marcelli family villa had resulted in a fairly pleasant experience for both Sylvia and Bill. Lorenzo had exercised his various charms with the benevolence of a kind and generous host. Although, toward the end of this occasion, he chided his sister at one point briefly after she had ridiculed the United States people in general for their backwards and anti-progressive stance toward science, their political hypocrisies, and their obsession with business and the dollar and its direct consequence of exploitation of the working class. Arabella's been reading a lot of Elena Ferrante, you see. This talented and quite politically conscious writer has all but captivated my sister and transformed her into a communist, Lorenzo explained. I, too, have read a few of this woman's books. She is a superb author, without question, and she has acquired international fame and a prestige as have few other writers from Italy, apart from Pirandello, Moravia, and, more recently, Primo Levi. But, in my opinion, Arabella has allowed herself to be swayed by Ferrante's politics. I should tell you, Arabella said, that my brother has long since acquired the reputation of being somewhat of a cad, ever since my dear sister-in-law passed away. No doubt he was going to confession long before that. Arabella, please, our guests are not interested in the less agreeable facets of my personal life. What you're saying will only serve to make them feel uncomfortable. Very well, Lorenzo. Then I shall be happy to change the subject. I shan't want them embarrassed because of you. Moments after this, however, Sylvia mentioned that it was getting late and that she and Bill would soon need to return to their rented farmhouse. Lorenzo called out Vincento, who soon appeared. After Bill and Sylvia thanked them, and all four went out to the front drive, and as they were passing out through the doorway, Arabella trailed immediately behind Bill and whispered to him, "Meet me tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'll be in the town plaza standing next to the fountain." Bill glanced at her with a careful curiosity, but made no reply. He followed Sylvia into the back seat of the car, shut the door, and waved, and Vincento sped off. Once they were back inside the house, Bill debated with himself whether or not to tell Sylvia about Arabella's rather bold invitation. In the end, he remained silent over this matter. The following day's weather turned out to be cloudy, with rain appearing inevitable at some point. Not long after lunch, Sylvia mentioned that she felt tired, perhaps because of the dinner we went to last night. Once she had closed the door to the bedroom, Bill wrote a brief note saying he had gone to the village to buy some more wine and some cigarettes for himself. He put on his jacket and a snap-brimmed cap he often wore in the off-summer months and went out. In a short time, as he approached the plaza, he saw Arabella standing where she had promised to be. She wore a plain yellow dress